I was very happy when Lyney was released because I did not want to pull for him. It's honestly pretty great when Hoyo releases a character I'm not interested in. More time to save up for future characters, fewer resources needed, not to mention no need to farm for more artifacts. While I didn't dislike Lyney, he didn't appeal to me either, and the last thing I needed was another pyro DPS. So why on earth did I pull for him in the end? And did I regret that decision? Lyney was first revealed to the world in the Tevat chapter storyline preview trailer, which was released on the day before Genshin first came out. He and his sister, Lynette, were the mascots for Fontaine, Act 4 of the Traveler's Journey. 3 years later, they were front and center once more in Fontaine's trailers, and he was the first 5-star to be released from the new region in 4.0. While I loved Lynette's design, there was something about Lyney which did not appeal to me, and it's not what you might think. Honestly, what bothered me the most was that one of the most prominent features on his outfit looked physically incorrect. He wears stockings with garters. This apparently upsets some people, but it's not a problem for me. But the garters are loose. Weirdly loose. It's a tiny detail, but every time he's on screen, I cannot help but question what the heck is going on there. Garters are supposed to hold up the stockings, therefore they should be attached. But they're loose. They're not even touching the fabric. Who designed this? Was Hoyo trying out mid-journey? Aside from this detail, his appearance is nice enough, but my time spent designing and creating clothing means I cannot unsee the weirdness here. It makes his screen time a uniquely unsettling experience. And in the first Archon quest, he gets a lot of screen time. He agrees to act as the traveler's guide to Fontaine and invites us to his upcoming magic show, only for it to be interrupted by the death of his assistant. Cue a murder mystery and courtroom drama as the traveler and Navia work together to uncover what actually happened in order to clear Lyney's name. This was a ton of fun, with a setup I enjoyed and an engrossing story. At first, I was also a little unsure about Lyney's personality, but I grew to appreciate him pretty quickly. His friendly and light-hearted persona is actually a facade he hides behind, and in reality he has a tragic past filled with secrets. There's a weird moment when the traveler is supposed to be shocked and betrayed that Lyney and his siblings are affiliated with the Fatui, but I still don't understand how that was supposedly not obvious from the start. His story quest explores his history in a little more detail, and while it was a little more entertaining than some character stories released in earlier versions, I still found my attention wandering while playing through it. By the end of the Archon quest, I liked him overall, but it was more of a lukewarm feeling, and I was perfectly happy to skip him. I know people who pull for every character to keep their roster complete, but even if I could afford that, I wouldn't want to. It takes a ton of resources to level up a character, and I'd prefer not to invest weeks worth of resin into someone I'm not excited to play, and I hate having limited characters who are not leveled, so I can't bring myself to pull for someone just to keep them waiting for a rainy day. And in Lyney's case, I already have Hu Tao, Yoimiya, and Klee, plus Yanfei still waiting, so chances of me feeling any need of him were extremely low, which made him an easy skip for me. Enter Genshin's Korean fanbase, or at least a vocal segment of their male fans. They were angry at his release because they wanted Hoyo to release more female characters and felt his design was disgusting because he's a guy wearing a garter belt and showing some skin. Don't get me wrong, people are free to dislike a character's design for whatever reason, but outright calling for boycotts in a case like this comes across as blatant queerphobia. Even outside of obnoxious gender wars fueled by incels, I always find myself feeling sympathetic to the downtrodden, to the underdogs, or those cast out of society for no fault of their own. So of course, as this controversy kept coming up, I found myself rooting for him more and more, and when I like a character, it makes me want to pull for them. After a couple of weeks I'd had enough. I pulled for him. He came home, and I shall forever defend him against the slutty magician police, despite his questionable tailoring choices. But that leaves an even bigger question. Is he worth it when he's not an instant favorite for you? Before we get to that, let's first explore how he works, his build, and the teams I've used him in. He's one of those characters who you can use mindlessly and get decent damage, but who rewards you handsomely for paying attention and really making the most of all the parts of their kit. He's a pyro bow user with the standard weak normal attacks, though he does have some fancy animations which fit his magician persona. His charge attacks have 2 levels. The first, faster level, shoots the typical infused arrow, but a longer charge produces uses a special arrow which deals more damage and creates this weird little cat in a hat on the field. This hat taunts nearby enemies, acting as a subtle form of crowd control. Once its duration expires or its HP is depleted by the enemy attacks, it shoots off a pyro strike at one nearby opponent. His skill is a flourish of his hat, unleashing fireworks for a flash of AoE pyro, exploding any nearby hat thing for extra damage. It has some further special effects which we'll get to in a second. His burst is quite bizarre. He turns himself into a giant cat in a hat and zooms around like a bumper car, causing pyro damage to enemies he gets close to. At the end, he explodes back into his human form with one final burst of pyro damage, leaving behind another one of his weird little hats. All of this is tied together by his stacks mechanic, which you can see indicated by a floating number next to him in game. If he has more than 60% HP, when his charge attack creates a taunt, it drains some HP and he gains 1 stack, with a maximum of 5 stacks. That means he gains 1 stack per charge attack, plus 1 at the end of his burst. When he has stacks available, if he uses his skill, it consumes the stacks to deal extra damage, regenerates his HP, and restores some energy to him. This is one of those situations where any description or footage of gameplay is going to be pretty hard to follow until you actually try him out. If this just confused the heck out of you, try rewatching it after giving him a go. It took a while for me to get used to him, but once you get the hang of it, he can be really fun to play, and his damage is impressive. As for his build, I was a little disappointed not to get his signature weapon, but did have some good options for him. Several of the 5-star bows are great for him, such as Aqua Simulacra, Thunder Impulse, Skyward Harp, and Amos bow, and he can also make good use of 2 craftable weapons, the Song of Stillness and the Prototype Crescent. My Lyney has a bow from the Battle Pass instead. Originally I gave him the Viridescent Hunt, but eventually got him the Scion of the Blazing Sun instead. This bow is fantastic for him, with a crit rate stat, plus a damage boosting passive which is triggered by charge attacks. In terms of artifacts, he wants an attack sans, a pyro damage goblet, and a crit circlet, with crit and attack substats, plus a little bit of ER if you want to use his burst on cooldown. My Lyney ended up with 50 to 198 crit, 86 to 198 during battle, about 1900 attack, and more than enough ER. He's yet another Fontaine character who can make full use of the Marechaussee Hunter set, so it's rarely worth farming for anything else. He could make use of several other sets, Lava Walker, Vermilion, Shimenawa, Wanderers, and so on, but as always, they'll make acquiring great stats harder than with Marechaussee. His normal attack is his most important talent, though both his skill and burst are valuable, so I've leveled all 3. His constellations are focused on increasing his damage, so as per usual, I skip them completely. Since Lyney is a main DPS, his teams are tailored to his needs. The biggest influence on his team setup is his A4 passive, which drastically improves his damage in mono pyro teams. It provides a huge buff when he attacks enemies affected by pyro, which restricts his ideal teammates to pyro, anemo, and dendro. Any other element risks removing the pyro aura, which tanks his damage output. This passive also provides an extra damage boost, which gets stronger with each pyro character added to the team. This means it's best to limit his options even further to just pyro and anemo, since dendro characters don't provide much else to Lyney. For example, while Nahida would do a great job of sustaining the pyro aura via the burning reaction, even her buffs do not provide as large a boost as he would get just from adding an extra pyro character. Bennett is probably his most consistent companion, providing a ton of attack, great healing, and a further pyro damage boost if you have his C6. It's rare to see Lyney used without him. Xiangling is also a good option due to her solid damage output and her pyro damage boost at C6. His charge attack playstyle can also benefit from a shielder or some interruption resistance, so Zhongli and Dehya are popular teammates. Note that Zhongli's resistance shred makes up for the reduction in Lyney's passive, and his occasional crystallized reactions aren't too much of a problem, but I tend to use him with a shielder Yanfei instead, who can hold thrilling tales of dragon slayers for another great buff. Sadly, Bennett, Xiangling, Dehya, and Yanfei are pretty much the only viable options when it comes to pyro teammates. A majority of pyro characters are an on-field DPS themselves, so they're not even worth considering. Thoma is a bad fit due to his requirement that the DPS use normal attacks to boost his shield. Xinyan or Amber could maybe work, but they're just not strong enough to be worth picking ahead of the others. Chevreuse would be possible in theory, but her Lyney teams end up lacking either a good shield, sufficient electro application, or Bennett's buff. When it comes to animal characters, Kazuha is the top pick, with Sucrose close behind. VV Shred makes a huge difference to the team's damage, so it's worth including an animal character who can use that set. But these two stand out due to their elemental damage boost as well as their ability to absorb and reapply pyro. Generally, the Lyney team I use the most is with him, Bennett, Yanfei, and Kazuha. It has a very smooth rotation, though Lyney's stacks mechanic is worth paying attention to. There's some debate about what his ideal combo is, but personally I found it feels most natural to use a charge attack or two first, then set up all the buffs from his support, followed with 1 or 2 more charge attacks, then his burst, and finish off with his skill. Most of the time though, his rotation falls apart in an extended battle since the cooldowns tend to not line up quite as well as some other teams. This could, of course, just be due to my lack of familiarity with the team, since I do use it only on rare occasions. The one exception I found to Lyney's restrictions is, unsurprisingly, Furina. Her damage buff is so strong that a team I tried with Lyney, Furina, Jean, and Bennett turned out to be similar strength to his best mono pyro team. Furina's hydro application is slower than most, and with the combination of Jean and Bennett's burst constantly applying and swirling pyro over time, the enemies retain a constant pyro aura. It doesn't really feel all that different to his other teams in terms of gameplay, and it's probably better to let Furina drive some other teams since Lyney can also work well without her, but it's nice to have a different option sometimes. Overall, Lyney is a fun character to play, though his teams are restrictive. In the right situation, he's incredibly strong, but so far those situations have been pretty rare in the Abyss, so for me he has mostly been benched in favor of more flexible characters like Hu Tao or Yoimiya. If you're on the fence, then you're probably better off pulling for someone else, since the other Pyro DPS characters tend to be a better fit against a lot of enemies. But if you want something new, he can be worth a try. In the end, I don't regret pulling for him. I still have a soft spot for him as a character, and it's nice to have someone so unique to play with every now and then. Until next time!